Our next speaker is Alan King Jr. Alan King Jr. is a 56-year-old black Hispanic male and father of 2 children, a 15-year-old son, Javen, and a 13-year-old daughter, Jania. In September of 2017, Alan was diagnosed with prostate cancer that had metastasized to the bone, so stage 4. Alan is very grateful for his team at NYU, who's worked hard for him and others like him. Alan attends a cancer group at Cancer Care. He attends church, sings in the choir, and his family is very supportive as well as his church family. So, welcome.
Wow. I kind of feel like I'm the new kid on the block after all these stories, because I just been diagnosed last year. So I'm not even a year walking with cancer, living with cancer, embracing it, trying to push it away, trying to not think about it, what to do, what should I do. So I was living in California. I'm a New Yorker, but I had moved out to California. And I came back in 2015 of December 25th when my mother was hit by a car. So that was that Christmas present that I got. So I came back, I flew back in December 27, 2015, and rushed to the hospital. The car ran over her legs, both legs. And it was kind of weird, like the car ran over her legs one way, then the lady panicked, oh, move the car. Then he ran back over again, and then she was like, move the car, and then he ran back over again. And when I heard the story, and I saw my mother, she had no broken bones whatsoever. And the car was actually on her leg, on her foot, back and forth. But it kind of ripped up like the thigh area because of the threading and the weight. She didn't break a nail. She didn't have a bruise. She didn't have a bump on her head. You saw her in the bed. She looked fine. And so, but when she tried to get up, then you can tell. And so I stood with her for 17 months. My kids were still in California. It's pretty much coming out of a marriage, nothing too crazy, but it was coming out of a marriage. And so, I was working for Cadillac over there, and I kind of hated the car business because I don't like to lie to people. So that was like kind of an issue. But I did it because I had a family, but I didn't lie, but I did the job, right? So I surpassed my FMLA. I was sending money back to my landlord. My kids have always been homeschooled. They've never seen the inside of a classroom except for it's like a function or anything. That's something we decided back in 2002. We just wanted to kind of like be close to our children and kind of like just let them know what we think, opposed to what everybody else thinks, and just have our core values there, our Christian core values. My mother started getting better. I went through her everything. She was 60 days in the hospital, 40 days in the rehab. Then the home care came, walked her to the physical therapist, walked her back, this and that. Saw the tears, saw the pain, saw the resilience of a single mom who had raised 2 kids off the door anyway. Thank God she was retired already. Her mortgage was paid up, so she didn't have like that extra burden of finances to think about and all the other paperwork and the bureaucracy that comes with that. So it kind of relieved a lot of pressure, but I still had my family in California. And so the landlord, when I told him when I left, he said, listen, I'm going to give you the whole month to pay your rent. Don't worry about it. Just keep in touch with me. So he let me pay it off in increments. And that was a huge lift off also. But it was still hard. It was still like, I'm over here, they're over there. It's not like I could jump on the train and like I'll be there in an hour, 3,000 miles away. And I'm just doing phone calls and, how you doing? Hey, you doing your devotions? You don't forget to read. And they're telling me yes, but they're not doing it because I'm not there. So, the kids, right? So my mother started getting better in 2017 at about February or March. I already knew that I wasn't going to go back to California. It was kind of like already a given that I need to be here. My sister lives in Holland and Amsterdam. She's a yoga instructor. She had recently lost her husband. She couldn't come over. And so we're a very small family. So it was really left to me. My church family was telling me, thank God you're here. So I had to deal with the stuff that happens in the hospitals, the administration, they want to, when I got here, when I flew in on the 27th, they already had her discharged. She couldn't even get out the bed. And I was like, where? You're discharging her to where? Oh, she's fine, and I'm like, she's fine? Like, so her bed was like next to the bathroom, and I watched the aide come and ease her over, help her up. And she's like 70, going to be 79, so she was 77. Arms were shaking on the walker. It took her like 20 minutes just to get from there to the bathroom, and they're telling me she's fine. So I had to appeal the decision and all the stuff that was coming in. So it was very emotional, very taxing, but I kept just like, God, you need to help me. You need to help us here. So now she's getting better. She's kind of like putting the cane down. She was with the walker, putting the cane down. I decided to go back to work. So I was like, okay, God, you've always given me something I'd never done before. So I need you to give me something I've never done before. So I wound up getting a job at One Lincoln Plaza across the street from Lincoln Center. So I'm doing doorman, concierge, porter, and 640 unit building. So I'm thinking, I haven't worked for a while. Maybe these little quirks that I'm feeling is because I haven't worked in a while, right? So I started feeling like a little muscle pull here, a little burning sensation over here. I put the icy patch hard here. I took some aspirin. It kind of it reduced the inflammation, which I didn't know what I was doing, but I was doing something right, because to me, I'd never gotten sick. Now, I was an asthmatic kid as a kid, but I grew out of it at 13. Never been hospitalized, never been nothing. Nobody in my family ever cancer. My oldest cousins are nurses since the 70s. And I just recently talked to them, and I just asked them again, because I come from a single-parent home. And I asked her, Cheryl, has anybody, she said, no, nobody, none of my cousins, none of my sisters, nobody. So I'm the first, even though I'm Alan King Jr. the second, but I'm the first with cancer. So, my church backed me up. My pastors were praying. My elders were praying. And that meant a lot, because there was moments where I couldn't pray. I didn't know what to do with this thing. I said, what do you, I seen it with other people. I seen my pastor, the founding pastor, David Wilkerson, his wife, go through 26 cancer procedures. I watched her over and over again. But when it was my turn, I said, I don't know if I can do it. So I seen all the faith and the trust and the prayer and the fasting. And I found myself like, I don't know, after 20 years of being in this church, if I got it to do it. But I kept waking up in the morning, and I said, God, I've always believed if you woke me up today, it's not to cause me, you got a blessing for me somewhere. So here I am diagnosed. I contact my friends who are retired in Florida, and Fayette, she's a wonderful woman. She had breast cancer, one removed, the whole bit, and then it went away. It came back in her spine, so it explodes in her spine, because I'm not saying it correctly, but it explodes in her spine, and then it's like in her liver. So we spoke. She kept keeping in touch with me, her and her husband, and they went to NYU. And I went to NYU with them while we were all working at the church for one of her procedures. And I seen her come out of there with a smile out of the surgery. And I was like, wow, So I had the honor of kind of like having all this reference point and kind of saying, if they can do it, just maybe I can do it. I was at a maybe, just maybe, because I didn't know. So when I got diagnosed and when I went to my doctor, he said, he did a stomach scan and he took a blood work, and the stomach scan came back negative because it was a sonogram. And he said, your blood work is good, but your numbers, your PSA is high. And I was like, I'm not in the medical field, so like, remind me, And I had just did a testing like about a year and a half ago before I came back here. So now I'm really confused, right? Because I'm saying, wait, I'm testing myself. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. He tells me, look, I want you to go to the urologist. He didn't tell me exactly what he thought it was, but he sent me to the urologist. The urologist does the test. He says he feels something. I want to do a biopsy. He takes 4 samples. All 4 samples come back positive aggressive. I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? So I'm like, okay. So he sits me down. We start talking. So in my mind, because I've known people who have cancer, even in acquired prostate, so I called my friend. He told me he had 53 treatments. I asked the doctor, I said, so what are we looking at? I'm asking him in the form of treatment. He's answering me in the form of life. So he's telling me 5 years. I'm saying 5 years of treatment. And then he goes, well, if everything goes well, 10. And then I realized he's talking lifespan. And I never really went to fear, but I had a lot of concerns because my kids, Javin, and everybody pronounces it wrong, so don't feel bad. Javin is 15 and Janai is 13. So the first thing I did was like 10 years. They're like in their 20s, you know? So I kind of walked out of there very numb, very confused, very, nothing. You don't hear nothing. You don't see nothing. I live in Richmond Hill, Queens, so I kind of got off the avenue and walked up. And as I was walking up, there's a song that we sing in our church. It's called Every Praise. And all of a sudden, I hear this woman singing this song, Every Praise. And I'm looking for her, and I don't find her anywhere. And it says, God, my Savior, God, my healer. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And that's all she kept saying. And I said, God, I don't know where this woman's at, but I know I need to hear this. And so I wind up talking to this woman who was sitting on the curb across the street just singing these four verses. And I told her immediately, I said, listen, excuse me for a minute. I don't mean, because, it's New York City, right? You just can't walk up on people. And even in the daylight, right? So I told her, listen, the song that you were singing, I'm very well familiar with it. We sing it in our choir, Hezekiah Walker. And I said, and when you were singing it, I said to God, I don't know why that woman is singing it, but I know I need to hear it. So I felt that at that moment, God told me, I see you. And I really believe that. So as I'm telling her my story of why I'm approaching her, she has like this big Cheshire cat on her face, and she's still sitting on the curb. And I'm saying that she's smiling. I'm going like, something's going to happen here. And she winds up getting up, and she looks at me, and I told her, I just came out the doctor. I just was diagnosed with prostate cancer, stage 4. And she looked at me, and she goes, you see that old man over there? That's my father. He's from Dominican Republic. He's a pastor. And so is my mother. He's going back in 2 days. My mother's staying with me. And the reason why I'm singing that song is because my mother is stage 4 cancer. This is from the door of being diagnosed. So for me, it was like the comfort that I needed to say, I didn't need to hear anything else. I really didn't, because anything else wouldn't have made sense. And I needed to know that there was some type of hope that, okay, fine. So the next morning I wake up, I didn't tell my kids. I was pondering on how do I tell my children at 15 and 13 the word cancer that most of us, even as adults, can't even comprehend. The next morning, my friend from the church, who always sends me like something at 6:30 in the morning, so I don't never have to send my alarm clock, because he always wakes me up at 6:30 in the morning. I say, you know what? Let me see what Rick sends me. I press the button, the notification, it pops up. He sends me the video of Hezekiah Walker, Every Praise. And right there, I said to myself, I don't believe in coincidence. And I said to myself, I really believe that God was just allowing me to see that, like, I see you. Lo and behold, so I wind up going to get a bone scan, and my bone scan looks like this. So if you can't see it, but if you see anything black, everything black is the cancer. So I'm just looking at this thing, and I'm saying, I don't feel like how that thing looks. And that looks like a Halloween type thing. And so, and the guy's talking to me, and so I grabbed all my paperwork. The doctor, the urologist, wanted to send me to Brooklyn in Kings Plaza for radiation. He said, you're going to get like 54 treatments. And so I was like, I guess that's what it is. I don't know, so, but thank God I got all my paperwork. I called my insurance. I called Fayette. We got on a 3-way. She had been here. Let me give you my doctor. She gave me her doctor. I called the doctor. He didn't take my insurance, but his associate did, Dr. David Weiss. When I researched him, Dr. David Weiss is a prostate bone cancer doctor, specifically. He does nothing else. He loves the research. Young guy, full of energy, if anybody knows him. Just amazing, So when I came in to see him, the day that I was gathering all my paperwork and getting it faxed over, I called her on a Monday, his associate, Jessica, and she was saying, I got your paperwork. I need one more paper. I called the other doctor. They sent it over. She said, how you feeling? I said, my foot is going a little numb. I thought it was just going to sleep. By 3:30 that afternoon, both legs were numb, tingling all over the place. By Tuesday morning, she said, look, if you don't want to come in Friday, we have an appointment open on Tuesday. I jumped on the appointment on Tuesday. Tuesday morning, from the top of, like, right up here above my belly button, everything was numb and tingling. So I get to NYU, I jump in a cab. I got my mother's cane because she still has some equipment. I was like really kind of rubbery. When I got out the cab, I couldn't even get from the cab even into the doorway. So they had to come with a wheelchair. When I told Dr. Weiss what was happening as far as the progression of the numbiness, immediately he said, you need to go to the emergency room. And now I'm like, so I'm there with my friend who's a cancer survivor from my church in the choir, breast cancer, and she's there going to have a mammogram done on the same day. So she goes, Alan, listen, I'll meet you over there at the Tisch building. He looks at her and tells her, I need you to cancel your appointment and stay with him. Now I'm like, wait a minute, this is not even her doctor. He doesn't even know why she's here. So I'm like really thrown off here, like this is, something serious. I get over there, I'm on standby surgery for 2 days. If I would have waited till Friday, I probably would have been paralyzed because the tumor that was wrapped around my spine was crushing my nerves. And that's why all the numbing and the tingling was going on. But they did a great job. For those 2 days, I was on standby surgery. I couldn't eat nothing. I wanted some ice cream. I couldn't eat nothing. Friday, they set me up for surgery, 6 hours. They removed the tumor from my spine. Dr. Polantakis, I actually saw him in the hallway today. He said, you look great. And I said, that's because of you. So it was like everything that everything to this point, I seen, I heard the word faith and hope. And I said, God, what do you want me to do? So I go through the surgery. I wake up after surgery. I feel amazing. And I'm not talking about the drugs. Let's be clear. I woke up fully conscious and I said, I feel like everything that they wanted to accomplish, they got. I didn't know what that was. He shows up the next morning. He says, hey, Mr. King, how you feeling? I said, well, let me ask you a question. How did the surgery go? He said, it went well. I said, that's how I feel. I said, Doc, I feel like everything that you wanted to do, you got done. He said, I did. Everything that we wanted to accomplish, we accomplished. So my care here was so amazing. I had zero pain. All the doctors were amazed. They were like, you should be, I didn't suffer any nerve damage, just nerve disruption. So a lot of numbing, tingling was still there. The NYU rehab was amazing. No confusion. I didn't have the Three Stooges running around, trying to like wing you here, wing you there. Came out of the rehab, did outpatient rehab. Now I go to the gym 4 days a week. I go on the treadmill for 30 minutes. I do the bike for 30 minutes. And then I go upstairs and I play around. If I don't get to play around, if I do anything in the gym, I do my leg work. And my physical therapist, when the first day she took me outside, I said, you know what, Faye, I think I need to walk this out. She said, you're right, because with spine surgery, you need to walk. And so I kind of felt already that I already had this thing. But the biggest thing was that one of the biggest things that happened was when I was in the rehab at 4 a.m, I used to always wake up and read my devotion. And I remember telling God, whether you take this from me or not, just let my children know who you are. That was my biggest thing, because then I realized that the biggest comfort that a parent can ever have is knowing that their children are okay. That's our biggest comfort. So it doesn't matter the cancer. And I felt God tell me, I want you to take the sting out of cancer. So when people say, oh, like when I say, I got cancer. First, sometimes people go like, wow, you don't look it. I go, well, how am I supposed to look? Right? So, and then they say, I'm so sorry. And I say, look, I don't need you to be sorry. I need you to sing. I need you to worship, because they know I'm in the choir. I said, I need a song. I'm going to sing through this. I thought that this would kind of give a grief cloud to my kids. My kids, my son Javin plays piano for the church. He's 15 years old, never studied piano in his life. It's all just, he hears it, he plays it. My daughter, 13 years old, she's on the prayer team. And so when I asked her, how do you think about your dad with cancer? She goes, when I first saw you, I was getting these excruciating pains. I didn't know it was from the tumor that would feel like I was holding the third rail of MTA. It would last for like literally. It would feel like I was turning into the Hulk. I had to scream that loud. And so when they saw after the surgery and everything, and when I came home, I wasn't screaming. And so when I sat my kids down, I said, what do you think? And she said, I said, you scared? And she said, I was in the beginning, but I see that you're okay. And I thank God that everything was so precisely put in place. The doctor, the other doctor that I called, he didn't take the insurance. It went to Dr. Weiss, Dr. Palankis, the physical therapist, everything. The song that I heard out of being firstly diagnosed that I knew I needed to hear, that God knew I needed to hear to calm my heart and all the things in my head. So what I don't do, and I do a little bit, I ask God, please don't let me get bombarded with don't do this, and you should do this. And I was like, God, I do not need to be all over the place. I'm already all over the place up here. I need some sanity. And so I'm listening to all these stories and I'm going like, wow. But there are evidence of hope. I never feared death. And I think that's because I've got a peace in my heart because of where my children are with the Lord. And so I said to myself, you know what, God, give me the strength to take this thing out of cancer. That when people hear it, because there is a stigma that comes with when people hear it, and especially when you say stage 4, they're like, oh, so when's the funeral? No, really, they're not saying it, but you can hear it. And so I said to myself, I said, God, I want to take this thing out of cancer. I want people to understand, like, yes, we are normal people. And yes, I might not even die of cancer. I might get hit by a car or whatever. You know what I mean? But I mean, this is just the reality, right? But I said to myself, I'm going to embrace cancer like it's a friend. So sometimes I tell cancer, okay, today I got my 2 shots in my stomach. I take 2 Firmagon shots. I take 2 chemo pills in the morning, 2 Firmagon shots every 28 days and a steroid. I got the 2 shots at 2 o'clock. I've been here, so I kind of feel it a little bit. It's not hurting or nothing. But I said to myself, and I said, God, give me the opportunity to take this thing out of cancer. Because people cower. And sometimes you lose friends. Sometimes family doesn't know what to do because of misinformation or lack of education or their own fears. But then my elder told me this: you're going to meet people that you would have never met because you have cancer. And now, as a percussionist, the percussionist in our band, his name is Eddie Montalvo. He's a 2-time Grammy Award winner. He's played with the Fine Young All-Stars since like the 70s. And so he gravitated to me when I shared my testimony at the church. And he shared his story about him being the first responder and everything and how he got like a little sick. He takes me everywhere. He takes me everywhere. The Hilton, here, there, recordings, rehearsals. So I'm like his bodyguard. I said, look, like a little guy with cancer with bodyguard, right? But I find that what my elder told me is so true. You are going to meet people that you would have never met that need to be encouraged. And my job is not so much focus on myself with cancer. It's to focus on, you know what? God told me this. It can't steal your salvation. It can't steal your redemption, but it will try to steal your joy. So he gave me the warning. I'm not going to tell you I don't cry. I'm not going to tell you that I don't get confused and loneliness doesn't hit. But when it does, I go back to what I believe he told me. And I stay there and I throw on my worship music in the house or I plug it in my ear and I sing. And that's how I'm walking with cancer.